Hi there. Welcome to Cretin Classics. I am Davey Cretin. This is my new channel. I'm going to be doing my first album ranking today by a band I've loved for a long time, The Cars. Back in 1977, after listening to AM radio for years with my parents and loving great pop music, I discovered FM radio in 1977, and it opened my ears to a whole new world of music. I personally fixated on two stations, WPLJ and WNEW in New York, two rock stations. You now call them classic rock, but at the time they were just playing rock and roll, all types of rock and roll. And I found a band in 1978. I heard their music, and I said, these songs are rather catchy. They remind me of the songs I heard on AM radio when I was a little younger. Catchy, hook-laden pop songs. But this band had some oomph in there. They had some rock and roll. And I loved it immediately, these songs I heard on the radio in 1978 by a band from Boston called The Cars. So I went out and I bought their first album, and I fell in love with the album and the band. And each successive album that came out after that, I loved. So I became a huge fan of The Cars. I even saw them once in concert. Now, in my opinion, The Cars never made a bad record, but you have to rank them and put them all somewhere. So just because it's number 7 doesn't mean it's a horrible album. It's just my personal least favorite. Before I start with my ranking, I want to show you something. This is a great 2-CD set called The Cars Anthology, Just What I Needed. It's in a slipcase, and the slipcase you'll see is very shiny and glossy. 2-CD set, 20 songs on each CD. You get 40 songs here. About 30 songs from their records, and then about 10 or 11 songs are B-sides, demos, unreleased songs. So it's definitely a worthy addition to anyone's collection. And just to prove, I play the CDs. There's disc 1, and disc 2, and of course, I have the booklet here too. There's the band on the back. For some reason, Elliot Easton is up in the air. Lead guitar player, great guitar player. And it has some nice pictures. It has nice essay. I'm not going to show every page, but also credits in the back as to where all the songs come from, what album, the charting. Very well done book. Came out in, I think, 1995. Great collection. Okay, moving on to my ranking. Coming in at number 7 out of all the Cars studio records, their reunion album from, well, mostly a reunion album from 2011. It's called Move Like This. Everyone thought the Cars were done because the last album came out in 1987 at the time. The band broke up in 1988, and we never thought we'd hear from them again. Rick Ocasek went on to a solo career, sporadically releasing albums, and the other guys went on to do other things. More on that later. Everyone thought they were done, and unfortunately, Benjamin Orr, the bass player vocalist, had passed away in 2000. Yet in 2011, they came out with Move Like This. The reason why, allegedly, is because Rick Ocasek had 2 young sons at the time with famous supermodel Paulina Portskova, and his sons had never seen where he made his bones. They'd never seen or really known about his band. They were too young. They weren't even born when the Cars were a big deal. So he got the band back together. That's Rick Ocasek on lead vocals and rhythm guitar, David Robinson on drums and percussion, Elliot Easton on lead guitar backing vocals, Greg Hawkes on keyboards, some saxophone occasionally, and backing vocals. And unfortunately, Ben Orr had passed away. Bass and vocals was not on the album. which is probably the main reason that it comes in at number 7. His presence is missed on this record. It's produced by the band and Jackknife Lee, and the bass guitar duties are split between the producer, Jackknife Lee, co-producer, and the keyboard player, Greg Hawkes of the band, also plays bass. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He can do a lot. Great keyboard player, too. At any rate, so that's one of the reasons it comes in at the bottom of my list, is because Benjamin Orr's not on it. You miss his voice, his presence. Also, Rick Ocasek didn't want too many lead guitars on the album, so there's only really one song that has a lead guitar. And I have a friend, let's call him Lobo, the Wolf, and Lobo knows Elliot Easton. He's friends with him. And when the album came out about 12 years ago, my friend Lobo said to his friend Elliot at the time, Elliot, how come there's no guitar solos on this record? And Elliot said, well, that's what Rick wanted. He didn't want many guitar solos on the record. So unfortunately, there's only one song, which is a really good song, Keep On Knocking, that has a great Elliot Easton guitar solo. The record's not bad. It's a good record. Just maybe the songs aren't as memorable, and without the guitar solos, without Ben Orr's presence, that's why it comes in at number 7. Besides Keep On Knocking, there's other good songs on the record. Blue Tip, the first song, once you hear it, it starts out with that keyboard sound and kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? And then the vocals come in. Hey, that vocalist, I know that voice. And then the chugging guitar, and it's the Cars. It's that sound. And the song is called Blue Tip. Excellent song. Also, the second song, Too Late, another very good song. And the other song I really like, sorry, I lost my place on my notes here, is Sad Song. That's it. So those are my 4 favorite songs. It's a good album. It's not great. Definitely worth hearing, listening to. Okay, coming in at number 6, their last studio album at the time, from 1987, Door to Door. Oh, I forgot to say one thing. The Billboard chart placing in America of the last album. Number 7 is Where Move Like This. That was the peak. Number 7, placed on the Billboard chart. Did not certify, but it reached number 7. Getting back to number 6, Door to Door from 1987, it only reached number 26, which was a little odd. Maybe it was too long of a gap because the previous album had come out in 1984. This is 1987. Music changes every so often. Times were changing. People were moving on. Maybe they'd forgotten about the Cars. Maybe some of the songs aren't as memorable as songs on their previous records. It did go gold. It did certify gold. Each of the first 6 albums did certify. And Door to Door certified the lowest at gold. It's a very good record. There are some great songs on it. Songs I really love. It's produced by Rick Ocasek, which I think by 1987, after the band had been together, they formed in 76 with the 5-man lineup. They'd been together over a decade, touring in the studios, making records, just living in each other's pockets, like that. Just, when you're in a band, it's very close-knit, and sometimes you just can't get along all the time, just like with your families. Everyone knows about that. So Rick Ocasek, in 1988, the band were touring, and he said, that's it, I'm done, I'm leaving. He left the band. For a split second, the band said, okay, we'll soldier on without him. And then they said, oh, it's probably not such a good idea without our leading light, our force, guy who writes the bulk of the songs. So they called it a day in 1988. They didn't even finish the tour. Still a great record, some really good songs on it. Strap Me In, great song. Elliot Easton's guitars on this album, the guitar solo, excellent. Very underrated player. Could play anything, but this guy plays memorable guitar solos. You could sing them, you could hum them, you know them. They're great. He's great. Another excellent song, underrated song that probably casual listeners of the Cars don't know, Go Away. Sung by Benjamin Orr. Does a great vocal on it. Very melodic. Very kind of eerie in a way song. but I love it. Go Away and Strap Me In. Those are my two favorites from Door to Door. Also, title track, the last song on the record, Door to Door, is very punky and fast-paced. One of maybe even the fastest Cars song. Very good song. And the first song, Leave or Stay, the way the album kicks in, great song too. So it's worth a listen, and I really like it a lot. So that's my number 6 from 1987, Door to Door. Coming in at number 5 on my list, the previous record, Heartbeat City from 1984. This was their one and only album produced by Robert John Mutt Lang. And he's famous for producing, or some might even say overproducing a little. Bands like Def Leppard, he was with Shania Twain, married to Shania Twain, but let's not even go there. So he produced this record, and it was the longest Cars record. It took the longest to make. They were in the studio for about 8 months or so in England with Mutt. And they produced this record, and it's probably their best known record other than the debut album, because they had 5 singles in America. 5 singles, 4 of them went top 20. Pretty amazing feat back in 1984 and 1985. And this record had legs. They kept releasing singles into 1985. So they did very well with this, and they also hit the zeitgeist with MTV with the video for You Might Think, which I think was the video of the year for 1984 when they held the awards in 1985, whatever it was. So it was a huge album. They had 4 top 20 singles. The album sold 4 million copies, 4 times platinum in America, certified by the RIAA, that's the American sales, and it reached number 3 on the Billboard charts. So it was a huge album for them. And besides the 5 singles, they also had a bunch of songs that were played on rock radio, which I will tell you about now, because those are some of my favorite songs. They weren't overplayed like some of the singles. Stranger Eyes, great rock song with some excellent 6-string fretwork from the aforementioned Elliot Easton. That guy could play anything. He's amazing. Solo, his riffs, stellar guitar player. Love him. You Might Think, the single, great song, catchy song. Every time, back when I worked at the record store, I worked with my friend Josh, great guy, knows music amazingly. And every time, because Elliot Easton plays the guitar left-handed, every time he was about to go into a solo, Josh would yell out, "Go, Lefty, go!" And it was this little inside joke, and just love Elliot Easton, very underrated. Another great song from the album, It's Not the Night, on the second side of the record, and Greg Hawkes shines on this song. His keyboards really come through. He had so much flavor and texture to this band. Top-notch player. And the last song that I would like to highlight on this record, the title track, Heartbeat City, another stellar song. So even though it's number 5 and it's a tad overproduced, still a great record, and I love it. Hit number 3, 4 times platinum, 5 singles, 4 top 20 singles, amazing. That was the 80s for you, what can you say? Moving on to number 4, a record that I think I enjoy more than a lot of Cars fans. Loved it when it first came out in 1980, their 3rd album, Panorama. And based on their momentum at the time, what they did with the first album, with the second album, this album hit number 5. That was its peak on the Billboard charts, number 5. Certified platinum. Good. They didn't do as well with it as their first 2 records. It's a little experimental. It's a little different. Rick Ocasek always had an experimental streak. He loved a lot of art rock, new wave type bands from the 70s, from before him. You could tell he's a big krautrock fan. And he liked the band Suicide, their experimentalism, also the art rock, I would say, of Roxy Music. They took a little bit from Roxy Music. I mean, they took a lot of different flavors and styles, the Cars. They were beloved by people who like new wave, punk fans, rock fans, hard rock fans because of the guitar work of Elliot Easton. They were just one of those bands where you'd speak to a friend who liked this kind of music, that kind of music, and everyone agreed on the Cars at the time. They were just a band that just was able to, they were beloved by a lot of music fans at the time. And it showed in their videos, their tours, their album sales, single sales, etc. So getting back to this album, Panorama, little experimental, different. They really only had one hit from the album, and it was a minor hit, but everyone knows the song Touch and Go. And the verses, I think, are in 5/4. It's in an odd time signature. A little bit of progressive rock, too, you could say, thrown into the mix as well. So it's in a 5/4 time signature, and then when it goes to the chorus, it goes into 4/4. So it's sort of almost like two songs melded together. So there's a dichotomy there, and it sounds a little odd, yet somehow it's intriguing, and it just pulls you right into the song. Excellent song, Touch and Go. I also like the title track, Panorama, one of the longest Cars songs, almost 6 minutes long, I think 5:45 or so. At any rate, it's a great song, another great Elliot Easton guitar solo on this song. Interesting video too, if you've ever seen it. Another great song, a deep cut from side 2, Down Boys, with some very strange Greg Hawkes keyboard work. And my personal favorite song from the album, one of my favorite Cars songs, the last song, last track, Up and Down. Excellent song with more great Elliot Easton guitar work. So that is my number 4. Reach number 5, Certified Platinum. Moving on, number 3, my third favorite Cars album, their fourth album from 1981, Shake It Up. And after the experimentalism of Panorama, they decided to sort of go back and go forward at the same time. And they sort of merged their experimental side with their pop side. So side 1 was mainly the pop rock songs, which have the hits that people know, Since You're Gone, Shake It Up, I'm Not the One. Those are the songs, the big songs on side 1, the more well-known side. And then side 2 is the more avant-garde stuff. And that's the side that I really love on the album. Not as overplayed as the first side. But on Shake It Up, I love Since You're Gone, first song, excellent song. Cruiser, the end of side 1 with another song with sterling guitar work from Elliot Easton. The solo, the riffs, spectacular. On side 2, This Could Be Love, which contains a great synth solo by Greg Hawkes. And I think he co-wrote that song too. Also Maybe Baby, the last song. David Robinson's drums on it are very good. And it has, I think it's triplets that Elliot Easton is playing. And I think there's a Greg Hawkes keyboard underpinning in it on the chorus when they sing Be My Maybe, when Rick sings Be My Maybe Baby. Excellent song, great way to end the record. So I really like side 2. It's not that well known. If you've never heard it, you should definitely check it out. So that is my third choice, their fourth album from 1981, Shake It Up. It only reached number 9 on the Billboard charts, but it was top 10, and it did go double platinum, so twice as many sales as the previous record. Moving on to number 2 from 1979, the second album, Candio. Another amazing release. Almost on par with the first album, but not quite. Still, the sort of two sides of a coin. Both excellent records, their first 2. Gotta love them. This album was produced by Roy Thomas Baker. In fact, their first 4 records, first 4 produced by Roy Thomas Baker, best known for his work with Queen and other bands. On this album, Let's Go. It's a great song. David Robinson's drums, just Rick's vocals, just the whole song, so darn catchy. Love it. Side 2, Night Spots. More excellent fretwork from Elliot Easton on guitar. The solo, his riffs, Greg Hawk's keyboards, adds up to an amazing song. Love Night Spots. Also, towards the end of side 2, Got a Lot on My Head. It's a really good rock song. Just straight ahead rock, a really good backing vocals. And then, of course, I'm a sucker for the last songs on most Cars records. Dangerous Type, probably my second favorite Cars song. Love that song, everything about it. The guitar solo from Easton, keyboard work from Hawks, just the chiming sounds, the keyboards, guitars, the way it ends. Amazing song, Dangerous Type. Love it. Now, this album reached number 3 on the Billboard charts, and it's certified 4 times platinum, quadruple platinum for Candia. Not too shabby indeed. And of course, coming in at number 1. I mean, there's really no other choice. Although I love all their albums, it holds a special place in my heart. It's the first one I ever got. From 1978, the debut self-titled Cars album, simply entitled The Cars. That is my number 1 Cars album. It's my favorite album. For years, everyone's joked that before the Cars released the Greatest Hits album, they should just call this album the Cars Greatest Hits, because 6, maybe 7 songs were played on classic rock radio. I mean, everyone knows the first 3 songs on the record. Those may be a tad overplayed, a little overplayed in my opinion. I really love side 2 on the record. That's what I'm going to highlight. You're All I've Got Tonight, great hard rock song. More great axe work from Elliott on guitar. Great underpinning keyboards from Greg Hawkes. Bye Bye Love. Another great song they play on the radio all the time. Then there's Moving in Stereo. What can you say about Moving in Stereo? Anyone who's seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High, any male or every male will remember the pool scene, Phoebe Cates, Moving in Stereo. Great song, great keyboard work. That's their experimental side coming through. And it might be the best example, the biggest hit example of their experimental, their avant-garde side shining through. And then the last song on the record, All Mixed Up. So melodic, so wonderful. Great, great song. Simply stunning, and I love it. And that's my favorite Cars song, probably, All Mixed Up. Their vocal from Ben Orr, can't beat it, top notch. The backing vocals, and even the sax solo. And I'm not a huge woodwinds fan, but Greg Hawkes on the sax, it just adds a certain je ne sais quoi, a certain flavor. And it just ends the album in a spectacular fashion. And that's my favorite Cars album. They never made a bad record. Love this band. And I also recommend, if you don't have it, and if you could find it on the internet, because I think this has been out of print for a number of years. At least it was back when I worked in the record stores after a while. Came out in the mid-90s, out of print, but it's still worth it. The double clamshell CD. The sparkly slip sleeve, if you could find that. Excellent. Highly recommended. Before I go, I just want to thank a few people. First of all, I want to thank Jack Toledano from his YouTube channel, All or Nada, according to Jack. Jack had me on his show this past summer. I made comments on his channel in the comments section on YouTube, and he knew I was a Mets fan, and he had me on, and that was my first appearance on YouTube. I did a Mets video with Jack Toledano on his channel, All or Nada, according to Jack. He had me back a couple of months later. We ranked the albums of the great progressive metal band, Symphony X. So I want to thank Jack for giving me my start on YouTube. I appreciate it. I made a joke in his comments once that he and I should get together and rank the Britney Spears albums as a joke. And then he eventually had me on. So thank you very much, Jack. Also, a new friend of mine, like his YouTube channel, Bicycle Legs from Australia. He's one of the Contrarians, which is excellent YouTube channel, by the way. And Bicycle Legs, I made a lot of comments on his videos, and he invited me on, and we did our favorite Billy Joel songs from each of Billy Joel's 12 studio records. So thank you, Bicycle Legs, for having me on your channel. And he's sort of like a brother from another mother. We have a lot of similar musical tastes. Great guy, Bicycle Legs. And then there's two guys in upstate New York. Joseph Sudo, whom we call Joey, and Tom Jennings. They have a channel, it's really Joey's channel, but Tom's on it a lot, called Rock Show Critique. And they do a lot of ranking videos and discussions of live shows they see upstate in the Albany, Buffalo, Niagara Falls area. And they had me on their show and we ranked the albums of Kansas recently. So thank you, Joey and Tom, for having me on. So I just wanted to thank these guys for giving me my start. And of course, I have to thank my girlfriend, Tia, because for years she's been telling me, David, you should start your own channel. Because I'm always talking about, oh, this great video I saw on Sea of Tranquility, Pete Pardo's channel. That was the first YouTube music discussion channel I started watching. And Jack is good friends with Pete. But at any rate, she said, you worked in record stores for years. You were in a band, a local band. You know music. You listen to all these different kinds of music. Why don't you start your own channel? And I said, I don't know. I don't think I'd be good at that. She said, I think you would. So she had faith in me. And I just wanted to say thank you, Tia, for having faith and love in me. I also want to thank my sister, Mandy, for always believing in me and being there for me for a lot of years now. I love you. And lastly, I want to thank my friend Irene, because she's the one who helped name the channel. I had a long list of names, and she said, oh, if you want to use your stage name, Davy Cretin, what about Cretin Classics? And I said, hey, that's pretty good. So we had a lot more complex names from this big list, and that one stuck. So thank you, Irene, for helping me name my channel. That's it for this episode. Thank you for joining me. I want everyone, take care, be well, stay safe, and rock out and power pop on. Thanks. Bye-bye.